So you're on the fence about stepping out and embracing your adventure with God, stepping out on faith, and you're thinking about all that you're going to give up, all that's going to be different in your life. You got anxiety about, what are people going to think if I step out? But today, I want you to know that it's not about you.
Hi, I'm Marisha.
And I'm Antoine.
And this is the Great Unknown Tour podcast.
The purpose of this podcast is to help create a roadmap for people to step out on faith and embrace their adventure with God.
We have sold all of our things in preparation to travel for 1 year in an RV with our 2 kids, interviewing couples about trusting God in times of uncertainty.
All right, let's get into today's episode. All right, so this past week, I was having a conversation with a guy who is, I think, becoming a friend from church. Mm-hmm. Cool guy. And we were talking, we met like a year ago. And then when we started the podcast, we would talk on social media about different things God was saying in the podcast. And so we've kept in touch, and relationship has grown and is growing, so it's cool. And we found out that we have so much in common in marriage, different like spouses, just there's so much in common. And in my conversation with him, I was reminded that what we're doing, like when we embrace our adventure with God, step out on faith, it's not just for us.
Right.
Like it can be, like doing this tour, we're like, okay, we're going to interview people. We're going to be able to see the States with the kids. The kids are going to be able to get out and see things. And a lot of times it can be like, oh man, this is scary to do this, or look at all that we're going through, or
right.
It's so easy to let all that stop you versus in the morning, like when Montana was in school, no matter how late, we went to bed the night before or whatever, we would get her ready for school. Like it would just be that, because it was something that affected her. And so we could get up, or even with the kids, like if we have a late night and they need something they do need something. They need food in the morning, get dressed, all that. We still get up because it's not about us. It's about them. So with faith, a lot of times it can be hard when God is asking you to do something, because you just I feel the loss. Like I feel the tension of him asking of me to do something. Like starting this tour, I felt the tension of like, we're going to have to sell everything to get in an RV. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to sell stuff. We're going to have to, I'm going to have to give up my idea of what our life was going to look like. I was just thinking about all that, and not how God was going to use that to inspire, affect the community around us, right? Like, I don't think I've thought about that very, very much, to be honest. And so the conversation this past week with that guy, I just, it really hit me, because he was talking about how listening to our podcast has encouraged him in his journey with God, and what he's been going through and what they've been going through as a marriage. And they have a podcast, him and his wife, and he was telling me she shares a lot of the same reservations.
They do?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Well, I was going to say she shares a lot of the same reservations that you have shared about being on a podcast, talking, being in front of people, that kind of thing. And he was telling me that it's been like a faith move of boldness for her to even share her story, because she's been through a lot, and for them to do it, And so I was even encouraged him, like, well,
I want to hear.
We've had this. I'll ask him for the link.
I didn't know it was that similar.
I mean, there's lots of similarities. That's why I said when I was talking to him, I was like, man, we need to like get together and hang out because we haven't heard anybody who could understand this intimately what we've been going through.
Right, and we talk about it all the time.
Right. That's why. Well, you see now why I was so excited.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, we could. Yes, this would be good. Yeah. And they are doing this with kids, like doing what they're doing with kids. And he's been on the journey of entrepreneurship for like 13 years. And so with kids, they've been going through like the same ups and downs. How we gonna pay this? How we gonna do Easter? How we gonna do birthdays? As us for a long time. You know, it was just encouraging to hear that. And so I'm saying that to say it just reminded me, like he needed the encouragement, right? But I needed the encouragement that came from him telling me how God has been using the podcast and how it's been inspiring him and encouraging him to step out and do this project that he's working on in entrepreneurship. And that encouraged me. It was like, okay, we're not the only ones trusting God this way either.
Right.
And so I think that, what did I put here? I think that, well, like I said, we really overemphasize all that we're going to lose. Because when I step out on faith, when God has asked us to do stuff, whether it's give more money or give clothes away or say yes to helping somebody or whatever the thing, doing this tour or doing the first tour or having kids, like it's easy to think about all that we're going to lose and not think about,
or even think about, sorry, go ahead.
or even think about I just think we think about all we're going to lose, what people are going to think, how life is going to be different. Oh, that's the thing. It's so hard to give up what you thought this season or your life was going to be like and let God be in control of it.
Yeah.
Because when God is in control of it, to say that to somebody, like, why don't you have this? Well, I mean, the path that God has us on, it just hasn't worked out that way. You know? Like we've together have lived 1, 2, 3, 4 states in 8 years. I have lived in 5 states in, well, like 10, 13 years. But that that wasn't my thought. Kind of, but
What do you mean wasn't your thought?
Well, I wasn't like, I want to live in all these different places. If I did want to, it's going to be more luxurious. Like,
I was gonna say,
I got a house.
You did say you wanted
No,
to
for
live
sure,
in
for
different
sure.
places.
Yeah, like, but I got a house
And
in all these places. I got a
met.
mansion. I got a mansion in all these places,
Oh,
and
mansions.
we flying to every one
Gotcha.
of them. Maybe not even mansions, but like Airbnb worthy. You know what I mean? Type places.
Gotcha.
And we're going back and forth. But the journey, God has done that, but it hasn't been like. It's been more like, we had to come live. We had to come live here, and we can't leave because God is holding us up.
Right.
Like that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it hasn't been like, oh, where you want to go next? Pick somewhere on the map. Like
Right.
I never thought about living in the DMV, as we've talked about. It never even ever crossed my mind. Like, yeah, we get out of all the list of God send us here. I never was like, yeah, send me to the DMV. Like, never once. I'm happy that we've had this experience.
Yeah.
So, you were saying something you want to?
Well, I didn't know if you were gonna
I'm done.
finish, but I was just gonna add in, like, it's not even like it's not always the negative. Like, sometimes it's like we think about all the things that we're gonna get out of it,
Right.
even
yeah.
if it's not just
Yeah.
materialistic. Just that the focus is on us a lot of times, and sometimes I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think we're just leaving out a very important part of the puzzle, like which the whole thing is, like a part of a puzzle. Like our lives are just a part of a bigger picture. I think about that conference we went to, and like you went and everyone got a name tag, and everyone's name tag was a piece of a puzzle. Was it a map of the world? Or it was something, a puzzle of something. And then throughout the conference, you would go and like find out where your puzzle fits. And I love that, because I always felt like where's my thing? You know what I mean? Like, where do I fit in? And alone, so I guess this is another perspective. Alone, it might not look like you fit in anywhere. But if you consider that you're a part or a piece of a bigger picture, which may be humbling for a lot of people because they want to be the whole picture, you'll have a better understanding of what it is that you're supposed to be doing, and like how everything works out. What did you say earlier? Like, you said something really good about the ripple effect. Like, I like the way you worded that. Like, what you do
The ripple
or
effect
don't
of
do
stepping out on faith.
has a ripple effect on other people.
Yeah.
And what's it called, like in the science world? Like all
The
things that
butterfly
are
effect?
connected. Is that what it's called?
Oh, you mean symbiotic, like symbiotic, something being a symbiotic relationship?
I don't know what that is.
Like, does it refer to like plants, or like which?
Everything, like everything.
Everything being connected?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like people, what we do, our thoughts or something, or like being connected to everything else around us and affecting it.
Oh, I know what you mean. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Ecosystem?
Maybe. I always hear it talked about, but it's like separate than the spiritual world, or like what God has us doing. But I think it is one and the same. Like,
Yeah.
what you were saying earlier before we even started, like what did you say? Come on, it was so good.
The ripple. Most people don't know about the ripple effect of
Not just the
stepping out.
ripple effect, but like they focus on
what
God's
they're
plan for
losing.
me. No, God's plan for me. Like, God does have a plan
before
for you,
we
but
turned on the camera.
God has a
Gotcha.
plan for
Humanity. Yes,
yeah.
like we think about, people always talk about, you know, God has a plan for you. God has a plan for your life.
Which is true.
It is true. And he has a plan for humanity at large. And so when we embrace our adventure with God, say yes to the great unknown,
Yeah.
it is not just us in a vacuum of like, yeah, you stepped out on faith. Your stepping out on faith, our stepping out on faith is going to affect the people around us. And so if you don't, it also affects the people
Right.
around you, like positive and negative. We both have examples in our life and in our family of people doing positive things that affected us and negative things that affected us for generations.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when we embrace our adventure with God, it's not just this like, all right, God. And I'm thinking about the person who doesn't want to do it because they're afraid to lose something, or they're
Gotcha.
afraid to, they're afraid their life is going to be different. And I believe that person needs to know that, you know, your sibling or your friend is going to trust Jesus now because they saw you stepped out, but they would have never. Like they wouldn't have stepped out. They wouldn't have stepped out. They wouldn't have trusted the Lord. They wouldn't have read their Bible more unless they saw you say yes to the great unknown and embrace your adventure with God.
Oh, snap.
What?
Spider. Huge spider.
Oh, that is big. Hold on, y'all.
Can you... Why are you standing on the couch?
well, I need to check the perspective. And
That is huge. Where did it come from?
we got to spray the stuff. Hold the microphone.
Few minutes later.
That is a big spider. I think you just gotta step on it. Don't throw it. You got
Baby, let me.
some.
I'm not going to throw it.
Okay. Well, you threw the book.
I did.
It doesn't move that fast. You got it. You got it. Oh my gosh. Okay. You got it. Good job. Good job. Look at the hero. You got it, babe. You got it.
Okay, so
To be
So-
continued.
so we're back. We're back. Got the spider. It's a very big spider. It's a very big spider. But we live by the woods, like right out the window. The woods are right there. So
Thank you.
remember what you were saying?
I miss LA.
There's definitely spiders in LA.
Not that big.
Yeah, because most people don't live by the woods.
Okay. There are still spiders, but
Yeah,
still.
they're definitely spiders. No, not like that, but living in Ohio, you already know if you live by trees or by the woods, you're going to see some spiders. I never seen one like that, but until we lived here.
Mhm.
Again, I've seen that one, like that type, like 3 times since we've been here, but it happens. The seasons change, and when we don't, we need to just go ahead and spray. Because, you got when seasons change, you're like, should we spray?
Mhm.
Should we not? When should we spray? We should spray.
Mhm.
Just go ahead and get it done. Because, no,
That
that's a
was too
problem.
big.
Yes, especially if y'all are out here during the daytime.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What were we talking about?
Humanity. God's plan for humanity. God's plan for humanity. Like, we think a lot of times about the fact that he wants to do something in us, or we are reluctant, or we don't want to because we're thinking about we're going to lose. But he has a plan for humanity, and so if we don't, how will someone's life be affected?
Right.
If we don't say yes to the great unknown with God.
Right.
You know what I mean? Besides the fact that it's going to improve your life, you're going to have more fun, you're going to feel more connected to the Lord. Like, it's important to also know that once you say yes to the great unknown and embrace your adventure with God, it's going to affect the people around you. And so I want to ask you, when did you realize that saying yes to the great unknown would encourage people around you to do the same? Like, when did you realize that? Like, what did you step out, say yes to God, and then like later on you saw like that it affected those around you, or that they started stepping out, or they did things? Is that making sense? Am I making sense?
It is, but I can't think of anything. I've been trying to. Not that. I mean, I believe that it has, but I have not seen it. Whether I'm not looking, because I'm focusing on myself. Or because it just hasn't been like made known to me. Like, people don't come to me and say like, oh man, when you did this, it got me thinking, and like I decided to do this, or like when I saw you do it, I was like, oh, I could do it too. maybe a few times, like with talking about joining the discipleship group, or like no longer bound, or I guess, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, things like that. Mainly, though, honestly, just my life. I see like how things have opened up, and like me meeting you and like getting married and having kids is definitely directly related to me saying yes to God. But that's not. I mean, I think it is a ripple effect because it affects you, and like now our kids are affected by that.
Right.
But someone else, I don't know, no one's been like, man, you guys getting together and hearing your story, that's encouraging. I haven't heard that a lot, or so, but I don't think that it hasn't happened because I haven't heard it. I just, I don't know, don't talk to people that much,
Well,
or like more connect. Like you seem to connect more with people and like ask questions and want to hear, and like I'm not on social media a lot. Like people don't really contact me that way. But I don't know. But I think I gave two examples that I just thought of where
what
people
were the two
were
examples?
affected. Someone, I remember when I joined the discipleship group, someone came up to me like privately and was like, tell me like what's it like. I'm considering doing it, but I don't know, like these are my concerns. And so I didn't even know they were watching me or knew that I was in a discipleship group, you know, or felt like out of all the people that were in it, why would they come to me and ask me the questions that they were asking? So, and then I think about, so I was a part of this group called No Longer Bound that I talked about before on here. And I talked about it with our, what are they called? Young adult group. And I did not necessarily want to, but I felt like if anyone is going to, it like would be me. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I was a part of the young adult group. Who else is going to go and tell all of them? So I asked John Paul at the time, like, can I just give a small announcement? But in order to do that, I like shared that I was a part of it. And I, you know what I mean? It was like, didn't cross my mind at the time, like, oh, if I share this, my story is going to come out with it. But I'm willing to do that in order to get the information out, to see if someone else wants to. And so at the end, I was like, if you want to, like, here's the information or how to get to it, but you could also come and ask me, and I'll give it to you if you have any questions. And people came and they were like, thanks for sharing, you know, that kind of stuff. But one person was like, I joined it because of you, and I didn't know how to deal with that in my past, but you sharing helped me, like gave me a way to deal with that, and I joined the group because of you, and I went through the whole thing, and I never would have done it if you hadn't shared. So
Are you comfortable sharing what the group was about?
oh yeah, it's called No Longer Bound. It's for overall loss, but focused on abortion. And I had an abortion and a miscarriage. So
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What was I going to say?
were you going to share
Well,
your experiences with how you saying yes to God affected other people?
yes. And with what you just said, I also want to say I'm sorry that that happened to you. I know we talked about it offline, but still,
Okay.
when you say it, it's just still like that still sucks. You know, I'm still sorry that happened to you.
Thank you. Me
But
too.
um, but thank you for sharing because I people have talked about how that has helped them. Um, I think what I'm realizing as you talk, we don't we don't see most of how God is using us stepping out, and I think that the ripple effects can be maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Unperceivable
Hmm.
sometimes because I do want to share a story, but it's not the in the story the person didn't say like, "Oh, I did this because of you." I just I saw it happen around me as I said yes.
Mm.
Something that wasn't happening started happening after I said yes.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and so that's what for you. I think you have some stories, but I would maybe it'll jog your memory when I tell mine. But I mean, just us being married, people have said that. Like I remember in young adult ministry, you cut your hair so simple. But this was like everyone first started going natural. Like it was still like you gotta cut all your hair off. Not you gotta cut all of it, but like you might need to start
Mm.
over so that you can embrace your natural the way your hair grows out. And like it was like you know, some people kind of do it. Some it wasn't like as widespread, and it's just a regular thing now. Boom, you
Right.
just everyone's going natural. It was still on the precipice of like more and more people were starting to, but it was still a bold move to. And you cut your hair, and you cut your hair. You had you know what I mean, the fade with the not high top like as a man, but like girly fade.
Okay.
I don't know what do you call it. It was cute
I
though.
don't know.
It was a girly.
Short haircut.
It was a girly fade.
Okay.
But it was cute though. Anyways, it was super cute. But after that, you saw people cut their hair off who had hair.
Maybe. I don't know.
I did. I would
Okay.
say I did. I
Do you
saw
think you noticed it because I did? You know how like when you get a new car and you
for sure.
like, oh, driving now, there goes my car. There goes my car again. Everybody got my car.
Ah, but that would be saying these people already had short hair and I noticed it. After you cut your hair in this community of our young adult group where these people came and saw you get your hair cut, they then cut their hair.
Okay.
They didn't say I did it because of you, right? That's hard to track sometimes if they don't say it. I'm just saying what I saw happen,
Okay.
right? You cut your hair. It was like, oh, she cut her hair because her hair was long, right? And then other people then cut their hair for the same reason you cut your hair to start their natural hair journey, to
Okay.
like cut off the dead stuff.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like then people started doing that. Not that they weren't already thinking about it or they didn't have other inputs like, they had been seeing shows or whatever. Not saying
Mm.
you're the only factor, but once you did it,
Mm.
these other people started doing it. And
Mm.
so that's what I'm thinking about when I'm asking that question, like are there any other instances when you see where you saw that happen? Because like you
No,
said,
yeah.
it's not it's not a vacuum of like I did it and everyone did it and they told me they did it, but like what I've noticed is like this isn't the story, but my friends when I started therapy in 2021, I was ashamed of it and
Mm.
so afraid to tell my friends, my male friends.
Mm.
And like I'm starting therapy and I felt broken and I felt broken. I felt shame. I felt like I was gonna be an outcast. I felt like they was gonna call me soft. And I started sharing it with like one person, like a friend that I felt was safe because he's another artist and we talk about that kind of stuff. And he was like, "Oh man, that's dope." And I was telling him like, "Man, I feel broken. I feel vulnerable right now." And he was like, "Oh man, that's dope. Like sometimes you need people to." He called it untangle your mind. I'm like, "Oh shit, I never thought about it like that." He was like, "I worked in a financial space and like my boss had a therapist for to help him get deals." And I'm like, "Oh, like this is." This sports psychologist, all that is regular, and it really helped me relax into it. So then I told, all the the 4 or 5 guys that are close that I'm in close with, and now 2 years later, they all have therapists where they didn't before. I can't say that's because of me per se, because the conversation, especially for black men's mental health, has been in the forefront for about 5 years.
Yeah.
However, they didn't have therapists.
Right.
And when I talked about what it was like with me and how I felt, how transformative it was, they started saying, I need to look for a therapist. And they all have therapists now.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's just God using, a linchpin. But I'm just saying, like, I feel I've seen that in my life almost in every area. When we say yes, it'll have these ripple effects that it's almost imperceivable because there's other factors. Like, there's other things playing off of you saying yes, but you saying yes might be, in the word it says some people plant seeds and some people water and some people get the harvest. You might be like the last rainy day that they needed for the harvest. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's all. That's what I'm getting at. You think of anything? No. So one story I want to share is my sister. And I was thinking about this earlier. I was crying, thinking about it. How amazing God is.
Before you start,
Yeah.
how much time do we have left after the
No idea.
spider incident?
I don't know. I don't know how long it went. Time elapsed
Okay.
on there.
Okay.
Maybe 10. How long do you want us to be recording right now?
I feel like we've got 30 more minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say 20 to 30.
Okay.
It's not gonna be. I don't think the story's gonna be long.
Okay. Your sister.
So, my sister and I are close. We've always been close, as long as I can remember, except for when we were little kids and I beat her up. But I didn't know. I wasn't. Looking back, that's not the right thing to do. But I didn't know at the time. Like, I didn't understand those dynamics. But so we've always been close, and in college we both went to the same college, and which I thought was so cool. Her, my brother, and we all went to the same college, which was just really cool. We ended up living.
So cute.
My brother and I had an apartment together, and then she lived around the corner. It was like really cool.
Such a nice life.
It was cool. So, we grew up in what people call a Christian home, right? But I would say
Culturally.
it was more cultural than what I know to have examples of following Jesus. Like, we didn't really talk about faith at home unless there was like an emergency we need to pray for or something. And so I will say there's no shade. That's no shade to my parents, but that's just how it happened. And so going to college, I wasn't thinking about following Jesus. because all we knew was church. Like, to me, Jesus was the homie that everybody talked about, and it's like he was like my big brother that went off to college and everybody talked about. So I knew about him, I knew all the stuff, but I didn't have a relationship with him. So going to college, I'm like, I ain't going to church. I'm asleep on Sunday because I never made a connection of like, I had never been discipled, and I had never made the connection of like, this is where you can learn and meet God and experience Him. It was just going to church. And so I said that to say, in college, I'm living, wild. And my sister comes to school, and I'm living wild. And she's been seeing this since high school. Me, sorry, parents, sneaking girls in the house. Having girls at home after school. We're not supposed to have girls at home after school before the parents got home. Just doing all the stuff that's not like that we weren't supposed to do. And so she's seeing that. And then in college, I started to want a relationship with God. And as I started following Him, starting wanting to follow Him, started being curious, started going to church, started being inquisitive, she was dating this guy. And she called me one night. I was sleeping in bed with my girlfriend. So crazy. And I get a call, and she's crying. She has a boyfriend. She's crying, and because she's crying about something he did. I don't know, something he did, she's crying. And at that moment, I started just following God. I had like conviction. I didn't know it was conviction at the time, but it was like, she's calling me in the middle of the night, crying about something he did. And it just dawned on me, like, how many other girls were doing that because of how I was at the time. Like, I had...
Or like calling their brother
or
crying
whoever, yeah,
about something you did.
Right. And so it's just... I felt convicted, and it made me realize, like, how I had been living had been affecting her view of men, and I had no idea. I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And so, I said to say, started following God at that time in my life, and over years, we would have, she saw it up close, right? My siblings saw it up close, saw, the transition, the change, and she was still dating that guy. And we were still, and the relationship didn't get better. She would still call and be upset, and so as I started following God, I'm new. I'm like, you should leave him. Just da 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 da. And he's like a minister or a reverend or something like that. Also, which was complex.
It's a big foot.
I don't think they can see my foot.
Okay.
I don't think so.
He's a big man.
No, I was to say he was like a reverend or a
gotcha.
minister. Mm-hmm. He was getting his MDiv at some point in a relationship, and he was preaching places. So it was equally frustrating for me, like, because he was so manipulative. So I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. But I wasn't like I am now, where I would say something like, hey, man, what are you doing with my sister? I wasn't there yet. And so she would call, and I'd be like, you should leave him. Get her out of there. He's acting like I did. Like, it was just... But after a while, God was like, if you want to keep a relationship with your sister, just listen. Because, if in situations where people are not changing their behavior, it can be annoying every time they call you. You tell them something that they're not wanting to do. Yeah. Right? But she wants me to listen. So I would just listen. Maybe when God would tell me to give advice, I would give advice through his lens and pray for her. Have other people pray for her for like 4 years. You were even a part of a group of women that I asked to pray for her. And all the while I'm growing in my relationship with God. So I moved to LA on 18 days notice. God asked me to move. I move out to LA. I'm serving in the church. I'm, one of the youth leaders, one of the young adult leaders, doing social media for the church. Just growing in my relationship with God on purpose. You know, I'm getting discipled, and her and I are having conversations about all this kind of stuff all the time.
Your sister?
Yes, she and we're talking about all that God is doing, all that how He's changing me, how crazy and surprising and unlikely it is, and I would, we would pray together, and one day I remember after all that praying, she called me, and she was like, she had started at some point in those 4 years with this boyfriend. She had started seeking a relationship with God, um, and she said, Antoine, I'm leading a Bible study. She calls me. I remember I was pulling into Bible study and the young adult Bible study and sitting in the car. And she's like, Antoine, guess what? I'm leading a Bible study with women, and I broke up with my boyfriend. And I was like, just flabbergasted. Like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't, because it just was like she was never going to leave him because of, like, it's hard. You're dating someone who's like a minister or reverend, but he's also broken.
And she had been with him a long
broken
time,
things.
right?
Yeah, been with him a long time.
And the family loved him.
Yes. No, not everybody. Nope, not everybody. My mom and her parents, my maternal grandparents, loved him. Yes. So yes, a part of the family loved him. Because of the minister stuff, but they didn't know all the background. Which, again, at this point in my life, I would have told them. I for sure would have told them. Like, nah, granddaddy, nah, grandma. Like, this ain't that. Because my grandfather would have been livid and would have confronted him. Because they also let this man speak at the church that they went to, and highly esteemed him. And I know everybody's not perfect, and they would have been livid about how she was treated. And so that was a turning point for me, because it was like, that's crazy and amazing.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
And now she's, her life has done a 180, where she's married, has a kid, involved in a purpose. Like, at one point, she was working a job that she hated, and she asked me, like, "What should I do?" And I was like, "You're asking the wrong person. You can't ask me that, because I might tell you something that's not popular." I was like, "But you might want to consider quitting." And she was living with my dad, our dad, and I was like, "He's not going to kick you out, because you're not somebody who quits things. You're not lazy. So if you quit something and you said she said it was affecting her health," and I'm like, "If it's affecting your health, go ahead and quit."
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone who knows you knows that you aren't lazy.
Right.
But take the time to figure out what you want and give him a plan, which is your personality, And she did, and she started on this path right now that she absolutely loves, and that was, I feel like it was almost 10 years ago now. Yeah, with, husband, great life, serving in her community and the church now. Just a very complete 180 she was very sad, very unsure of herself. She was less confident in general. And now she's confident using her voice, leading other people, trusting the Lord in so many different ways in her life. And she would always say, she says it over the past like 5 or 6 years, like, "I'm so inspired by you stepping out and following God, or
Yeah,
we
she
just
does.
worked at the same place. And when I came to work there, everyone was like, Danielle talks about how your faith inspires her, right? And so that is me saying yes to the great unknown, embracing my adventure with God, indirectly just bled off into our relationship because we're close, and it
Yeah.
just and it just sent her on her own path, but gave her the courage, gave her the understanding of the roadmap, right? You see somebody else navigating it, you can see how you can navigate it. And I mean, she still talks about it to this day. And so that's a very I mean, it's very practical because it wasn't like a big like I touched her and she had a broken arm, she got healed. Like it was over the course of like many years that this change was happening in me and in her residually. And I've just seen that over and over again in my life, how the people that are around me have been affected by what God is doing. Like when I moved to LA, if you haven't watched that episode, I talk about how God spoke to me and said he wanted me. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he spoke to me and said he wanted me to move by, and 18 days later, move to LA. And this is the first time I heard him speak. And so from that, my friend said he applied to like one of his dream colleges for his master's program and got in and moved to Chicago. And then another friend moved to Texas. And I remember talking to him. And he was like, "Man, I was inspired by you, like just jumping and moving." And then my brother moved to Dallas, and he says all the time, "I inspire him." And but I wasn't. I didn't think about that at the time. Like I was just like, I just gotta step out. But I just want to encourage the person who's like, I'm about to lose all this. Life is gonna be different. I gotta lay down my plans. The future is not gonna be like I looked. And that is true in in positive ways. And the people around you's life is going to be better and unlocked because you took the first step, because you stepped out. And that is immeasurable right there, because people having a better life because you said yes is like bonus. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's bonus. Like I remember when we got married, the women in your discipleship group that you talk about were like, "What happened?" Like if God did that for you, knowing where
Right.
you came from, he can do it for us. And now many of them have gotten married. You know? Yeah. So that's why it's important to
Yeah.
it's important to realize that it's not just about you when it comes to saying yes to the great unknown.
Agreed.
Do you have any, do you can you think of any stories in the Bible um, that connect to that idea of like one person's faith impacting people around them?
All the people in the Bible? Not one particular story, no.
Gotcha.
No, Jesus. That's always the answer in Bible class. Jesus. Can't go wrong yelling out Jesus.
I mean, you're right.
But, no, I would like to hear your Bible story. I know you got some.
It was kind of hard actually because I wanted one to kind of mirror the practical day-to-day change over years, and you don't really see that necessarily except for Jesus with the disciples, but Jesus is God, so it's
Yeah.
it can feel like a cop out to somebody listening to the podcast of like, Jesus
like
is
Jesus.
Jesus is God, so of course he's going to affect. Of course, him trusting God is going to affect everyone around him because he is
He's
God.
God. Mm-hmm.
So we can use that. We can take an example from there. But one that I did think about, a few that I thought about is, one is Peter walking on water when after they feed the Matthew chapter 14, after they feed the 5,000, they're in a boat going across, and storm goes crazy, and these are fishermen, so they know how to navigate the water, and they are freaking out. And so they see this, what looks like a spirit on the water, a ghost, and they are like, "Whoa, it's a ghost," And Jesus was like, "Nah, it's me, y'all." And Peter was like, "If it's you, tell me to come out and walk." And he was like, "Well, come." And he started walking, and Peter walks on water, and he sees the wind and the waves, gets scared, starts sinking. Jesus grabs him. It's like, "Yo, why do you have little faith?" Oh, you have little faith. Why did you doubt? And so, then they get back in the boat, and the wind and the waves stop. They stop.
Then Jesus tell them to stop.
And Matthew doesn't say that.
Oh.
There's another time in the boat where they're going across in a sea. And a storm got crazy, and Jesus was asleep, and they were like, "Jesus, you don't care that we're about to die?" He was like, "Why are y'all tripping?" And then he said, "Shh," to the wind and the waves, and they were quiet.
Okay.
That's a different story.
Okay.
And at least in Matthew, maybe in one of the other gospels of this account of them crossing over after the feeding of 5,000, it may say that.
Yeah.
But
not in Matthew.
not in Matthew.
All right. So then what?
And so he sits down, he gets in the boat, and then immediately the storm stops. And the disciples were like, they started worshiping and saying, "Truly, this is the Son of God."
Mm-hmm.
And so Peter, embracing the great unknown, embracing his adventure with God, stepping out on water, led to the revelation of everyone around him that Jesus is God, is the Son of God. Had this man not have done that, because it could be a huge metaphor for our life, right?
Yeah.
Stepping out, walking on water, stepping into something uncertain, following Jesus when the circumstances are less than ideal, things around you are crazy, but there are people who God is asking to step out and are not, and you did it, and you're walking on something that shouldn't be walked on. Mm-hmm. You're navigating something that shouldn't be navigated. Mm-hmm. You're defying the laws of how everyone said this should be done, even the laws of physics. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're doing it just fine. He was walking on water,
Yeah.
And so then they get the revelation about who Jesus is when Jesus comes into the boat. But it was sparked by their friend walking on water. And so when the disciples, later on, after Jesus is resurrected, are going and healing people and, speaking in Jesus' name, and you got to know that they were affected by that. That helped them to know that they can trust Jesus, helped them to know that he is the Son of God,
Yeah.
Another story is Esther in the Old Testament, where essentially, if you don't know the story of Esther, she was Hebrew, she was a Jew. The king at the time was looking for a wife. They kind of did like a Hunger Games thing, but like in a beauty pageant. It's like a beauty pageant thing where they like, "Hey, we're looking for a new wife," like Star Search. Oh shoot, you remember Star Search when we were little kids? Well, I was little. Well, forget it. An old show. Yes,
Yeah.
I can remember. Star Search. Anyways, they were looking for a beautiful woman to be the queen. And so they sent out a thing like, yo, all the beautiful women in the area come and we'll put you in front of the king and we'll see which one of y'all he like before he divorce y'all next year.
What?
I added that. Scripture doesn't say that.
Thank you.
Scripture doesn't say that. But it was just like not his first wife. So that was, anyways. So, you know, she gets chosen. She's a Hebrew. But she doesn't tell anybody she's a Hebrew because they were hated at the time. And because this king isn't a Jew. He's like a Gentile. He's a non-Jew. He's somebody from another nation. They are not in Jerusalem at this time. Or they're being ruled by somebody else. And so Esther finds out about this plan through her uncle that this person in high power is manipulating the king into essentially having genocide on the Jews. And she is torn of conflict. Her cousin's like, hey, you need to say something. She's like, no, I'm going to get killed for saying something. What are you talking about? You know, I'm not going to do that. And then he's like, why else would God put you in this position? Or no, not God, but like, what better time, what better use of your influence than to do this? But if you try to, back then, if you go see the king unannounced, you'll be murdered. You'll be killed, executed. And so she would have to go pop up with the king and tell him this. And so they called a fast with all the Jews, with all the Hebrews. They called a fast. So that
they?
Esther and Mordecai.
They called a fast.
Yes.
They said, hey, everybody fast.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Yes. They fasted. And then she went to see the king. And the king was like,
what?
Yeah.
Why don't they put that in the Bible stories when they're telling them? I mean, I know I can read the Bible for myself, but
why did they put what?
Why don't they put all in there?
Who is they and what are you talking about?
People who teach the Bible. Like, why can't you just teach how the story goes instead of leaving out stuff like that?
Oh.
Like they called a fast?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, I can find the scriptures for you if you
that
want.
Would be great later.
Okay. They called a fast.
Like, that's so important.
Yeah.
That's an important part of the story.
Well, I think it's like one of the most important parts of the story.
Anyway.
So they called a fast, and then she was just like, I'm going to go holler at the king. If I die, I die, you know. And so she goes. The king doesn't execute her. And they're at like a dinner, and she tells the king, like, you know, Haman is going to do this. He's going to do this to all the Hebrews and blah, blah, blah. And the king was like, what? Is this true? And then Haman gets executed. And then her cousin, I think, gets his position. The guy who was trying to kill everybody, the cousin gets his position. And, yeah, everybody, I don't know if they live happily ever after, but everybody lives. But I'm just saying that to say, her...
Excuse me.
Wow. Are you serious right now? Oh my gosh. If you're listening...
Hey, it is what it is.
You couldn't really hear it, but she just made this huge yawn with her face. I lost my train of thought. If she didn't say yes to the great unknown, which is speaking up for her people and going
to
against
be his
the
wife
rule.
And speaking up.
Right, going to be his wife and speaking up.
But I guess mainly speaking up because she could have been killed.
Right. Speaking up, trusting God to say, you know,
they would have all been dead.
Whatever happens, happens. Right. She still would have been queen, but yes, They would all
Well,
been
maybe
dead.
not, because
The king didn't know.
but someone knew. That guy knew.
He didn't know.
How do you know? It says it in the Bible.
It doesn't say that he did know.
Oh, okay.
He knew Mordecai was,
Okay.
but they didn't know that Mordecai was her relative.
Gotcha.
And so, had she not said yes to the great unknown, stepped into what God was asking her to do, so many people would have been killed, right? So that isn't directly of like, she sees the people around her change. But because they called a fast, how many people then trusted the Lord more?
Mm-hmm.
Because he saved them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, you're affecting someone's life, positively or negatively, and why not affect it positively for God? You know what I mean? Leading them closer to Him than just... Even if you're doing something positive, like, I'm doing something positive, if it's not leading them closer to God, I don't know how great. Well, I can't say that. I'm sleepy, y'all. Everything doesn't have to. Like, if you're a hairstylist, doing great hair and bringing someone joy, you know what I mean? It's great. But if you know God, why not have an atmosphere filled with the presence of God in your hair studio? You know what I mean? And you can just positively affect people on a greater level. That's all I have to say. I mean, it makes me think about everything that I do, like when just my day to day, like all the people that I talk to. Sometimes it could seem just mundane and like I'm just going to the store or I'm just hanging out, with the kids. But like if I think about all that I know about God and all that He's given me, why not share it? Like that's what I'm here for, is to share it, right? And like affect someone to make a difference, long lasting. Like I think about our kids, and whenever I hear them talk about God or like on their own and not regurgitate or repeat something that we've said, it just makes me so happy knowing that they have that foundation, you know what I mean, their own personal relationship with God. And hearing Montana like be like, shh, God's talking to me. It's so funny sometimes, but I know that He is, because she'll tell me what He's saying and I'm like, He said all that just now? Yeah, Mommy, shh, God wants to tell you something. And I'll laugh and be like, I'm going to take a nap real quick. And then I'll listen and He'll start talking to me. I'm like, this girl has it, you know what I mean? And if I just was lazy and was like, I'll wait till she's 10 and explain things, or, you know what I mean? Like, she's too young, or what she sees me do right now doesn't matter, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But she's already, she's 5 and she's killing it. Well, I say killing it, what I mean is she has a relationship with God. She's confident in her relationship with God. She's growing in her confidence. But, like, she can hear Him and she knows how to access Him, you know? When she's scared or when she needs Him, she knows He's good and He's her friend and there for her when she's scared. She knows who to thank. So I'm appreciative of that. But just everyone else, too. everyone else. Like, yeah, what you said, like, we don't know how we're affecting everyone. We don't know who's listening to this podcast or watching, but we do what we do first for God, and then, yeah, for anyone else who could possibly be positively affected and, like, get a little closer to God or know Him or start, like, stepping into what He's called them to do.
Amen.
What else? You have more stories?
Nope.
Scripture?
No. We got tour update.
Oh, okay.
Really fast.
Are we leaving tomorrow?
Hopefully. Not likely, though. We still need either a motorhome, Class A motorhome, or an RV and vehicle to pull said RV. Our friends...
Which one do you think we'll get? I'm still rooting for the motorhome.
No clue. Well, our friends have offered for us to use theirs. We just need to secure the monthly income to rent that one. A Class A motorhome would be very nice because it would be living space and
Get around.
Vehicle in one situation. It might be a little inconvenient for parking, but it'd be cool to, all have it in one situation. Whereas with the motorhome, the trailer, you can park it, like you said when we first started this, and drive around. Both have pros and cons. Yeah. If it could be like a maneuverable motorhome, you know what I mean?
Maneuverable?
Maneuverable.
Oh,
like it's not it's big enough for what we need and like space, but not too big to where we've seen at national parks and things, it could be cumbersome. Or you cannot get through a tunnel or something. So as long as we can do that kind of stuff, I'm fine with the motorhome. And I want what God wants, because then usually whatever we get will end up being like, I'm glad God gave us this. So that's been the hard part for me, of like, these are two options. I think I know what I want, but I really believe just God knows what will actually, how it'll be in it, and
Right.
what we'll actually like,
Right. But what if He's asking, what do you want, Antoine?
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like I would want to have the experience first.
And try it out.
Yeah, and then see.
Maybe stay in something for a weekend.
Nah, you need way longer than a weekend to know what you want in that situation.
Well, we could do a weekend in an RV and a weekend in a motorhome and see the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of get a glimpse, but I still feel like you have to do the time test. Like, there's some things that are like cool, like people about like LA. When we live in LA, people like, it's nice to visit, but I wouldn't want to live here. And it's like, no, it's better actually than visiting, because you're not going to try to go to Santa Monica, Pasadena, and downtown in one day. But that kind of, kind of thing, like it may be cool to have that trailer for a week, but I guess you could probably discern that while you're staying in it for the weekend. I feel like you could. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I don't really know.
Okay, so updates.
Just a few prayer points for those people praying for us. For guests to accept, like, we're going to send out these invitations for guests to be on a podcast. Just thank you. We want you to pray that that the people who are supposed to be on the podcast would say yes to being on the podcast.
Yeah. Whoever will be, will be. I'm not worried about that.
All right, but
Okay,
some
that's a
people may
good
be
prayer. It's a
apprehensive.
good prayer. There's no bad prayers.
Another prayer is that we would have creative, innovative, unique, and profitable ideas for merch for the podcast. Prayer. What? Third prayer point is for financial partners for the tour. As we begin to have donor conversations with people, that we will be connected to the right people. That there's people out there that are just look for causes to give to. You know, like we've been in that situation sometimes where it's like, man, we would love to give. We have money to give in this kind of way. We would love to. So just connect us with the people who want to see something like this move forward in the world. Our website will be back up soon.
I would say prayer too for our personal businesses to flourish.
Okay. I own a boutique marketing agency that specializes in branding solutions for small to mid-sized businesses looking to increase their engagement with their target audience. If you're listening, she's laughing right now. You gotta let people know what you do. Make it very clear.
I think they can hear. They can sense. I can sense it.
So yeah, I mean, prayers that we would get more clients for that would be fantastic. What? And then, really, we were praying that I would get on retainer with somebody who needs branding solutions. And then we want you to know that. Did you want to add to that?
Add to what?
What I just said.
No.
All right. So also, episode 11 will be on streaming services. It's on streaming services right now. We were having technical difficulties. We need to pay the bill. And so now episode 11 is on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to the podcast only.
Yay. Thanks to a sponsor.
Yes, thanks to someone partnering with us financially. So you can too, if you want to. Mm-hmm. It costs us $80 to produce the podcast every month. If we would love for you to be a partner, to make that happen. How would that feel? Knowing that you made this happen every month. What?
Helped make it happen. You were part of the puzzle.
Hey, if you want to be a part of the puzzle, hit us up.
Part of the ripple.
Our email's in the description of this podcast. That's it. That's all we got. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, you guys. Say yes to the great unknown with God.
Because you never know what miracles are waiting for you when you embrace your adventure with Him.
See you next time.
Peace. Did you like that? Did you like that?
Yeah.
Why she like that? Why
It's
is
a
that?
lot of